Hi everyone, welcome to Cooking with Chris. And today what I plan to make for you guys is probably one of the recipes I've been making the longest. I've made it probably one of the out of anything, one of the most times. It's one of my go-tos, and I would say it's probably, if there is a dish that defined like comfort food and that homey feeling and just like such a, just a good, really good, like you think of like maybe when growing up at your grandparents' house on Sunday, just a good, really good comforting food. It's this dish, chicken and dumplings. And I know there's all kinds of different recipes for chicken and dumplings. This one it's very simple and it comes out amazing every time. I've been using, this is probably the cookbook that I've been using the most in my life. It's called Soup, Stews, and Chilies. I have stains on this for the chicken and dumplings. It's kind of, rippled. It's probably got wet at times, and I have all kinds of different bookmarks. So this is one of my go-to cookbooks, but old-fashioned chicken and dumplings is such a great dish. So we're going to get started. The first couple things you need to do is you need to preheat the oven, because once we get this done outside in the pot, then it sits and bakes for about an hour or so. And so the first thing we're going to do is turn on the oven. And so the oven has to be preheated at a fairly low temperature at 325. And the reason for that is because we're going to be braising the meat. We're using chicken thighs. So we're going to be braising the meat. You don't want a really high temperature when you're braising. A little bit lower, it's in liquid, and it slowly simmers, and little by little it breaks down the meat, and that's where you get that really, really tender meat. So so the oven's on, and then the second thing to talk about is this guy. This is, as you can see, this thing I've used, I'd say, other than my knife and my cutting board, this is my favorite tool in my kitchen. It's a Dutch oven. And so I use this thing for so many things. It's such a great tool to have. I highly recommend getting it. It's cast iron and it's enameled. This isn't one of the big, huge, expensive Le Creuset ones. This is I think it's a Martha Stewart. It still does a trick. I have a couple others, but this is my favorite tool other than my knife in my kitchen. You use it for everything, and this is a great pot for this dish. So we have our Dutch oven, and we're gonna preheat this. Okay, so preheating the oven. So I have that, and it takes a while because it's cast iron. It takes a little bit to get hotter, to get hot up to temperature. So that's why right about medium-high temperature. So I'd say I'm on 6. At 1 to 10, I'm on 6 on my stove. So first we have to do is, so we have our vegetables and we have our chicken. So the first thing you want to do, because why you want to start on the chicken is because you could put the chicken in the pot and we brown the chicken, and then we add our vegetables and everything. So the reason why I'm waiting to not cut up my vegetables now is because once I have the chicken in the pot, you're not really doing too much with that. So that gives you that time to cut up your other vegetables and prep for the next step of cooking. So that's where you can you kind of learn those things and learn how to like work within the time and time management and stuff. So first thing to do, so we have boneless, skinless chicken thighs. Again, another one of my go-to meats. They're so versatile. It's easy when you don't have the bones in there, and they're not too expensive. But if you see, there's a little bit of fat on there, so you're going to just kind of cut off whatever little fat that you can from the chicken thigh. And there's a little bit here. Some of this on this side, you could kind of like, sometimes you take the knife and you kind of scrape it off, and then once you get to the end, then you can cut it right off, and you just kind of put your fat over there. If you notice, I have 2 cutting boards and 2 sets of knives, because this one I'm working with raw meat, and this one's going to be later for when I'm cutting vegetables. So that's why I have 2 set up here. And you're just going to cut this up into about 1-inch chunks. All right. So this is all you're looking for, about this size. Okay, it doesn't have to be perfect. It's going to get it's kind of shred up a little at the end, anyways. But we got 1-inch chunks, and I'm going to throw it into my bowl here, and I'll show you what I'm going to do with that after. Okay, so you want about 8 to 10 chicken thighs. All right, we'll take off some of that fat. Again, there will be some fat on it. That's the one thing about dark meat with chicken. It has a little bit more fat on it, but that's why it's a little bit more flavorful. But it's going to get rendered down because we're braising, and that's what braising does. You're rendering down. You're cooking that fat off until it releases all into your stew, and then what it leaves is very, very tender meat. So, but you still don't want too much. We don't want to have a big greasy chicken and dumplings. So we're just going to keep going. It's a little prep involved here, but not too bad. It's pretty easy. If you're not used to working with raw meat, just kind of get used to it. You get over that quick. All right, our chicken thighs are done. Okay, I'm done with that. Done with that knife and that cutting board. Now, I have a dirty hand here. I'll wash it in a minute. But what I'm going to put in here is a lot of salt. So we have kosher salt, a lot of salt, and a lot of fresh ground pepper. I'll probably even do a little more than this. I'm going to mix this around. So you just want to get all the pieces seasoned. It's a lot easier than putting them on flat and then sprinkling and then turning them to get both sides. For this dish, it's a lot easier and quicker to do this. All right, so we have plenty of salt and pepper on there. Make sure they're all good and covered. Okay, all right, so now we have our chicken. All right, next. Get rid of that. All right, so again, while we're waiting for that to heat up, I'm going to wash my hand. Remember, whenever you're using raw meat, you're always washing your hands every time. If you need to go touch something else, you have to wash your hand. Okay. All right, so while that's heating up more, we're going to cut up some of our vegetables that we're initially going to put in there. So first we have some celery, and we have some onions. So I'm getting low on onions here, and I found one that it's a little dark on one side, but because of onions, and you have the different levels, or the different peels and everything, this just might be on the outer layer, and then the rest of the onion will probably look good. So you look, there's the hairy end, and then there's not hairy end. You want to always cut the non-hairy end, because once you cut this, then the onion just falls apart. So this keeps it all together. Yeah, so it looks like just on the outer layer there. So we're going to cut that off. Now it could lay flat. And then we're cutting down the middle of the hairy end. So again, that keeps it all together. So now all we'll do, we're just going to peel off a couple layers of the onion, and then we have a nice, perfectly fine onion. So if you see onions that got a little dark on the outside or might not look good, cut it. Oh, the key is cutting into the oven, the onion. Sometimes it might go all the way through, but a lot of times it's just on that outer layer, and then you can still use the onion. So we have a perfectly good onion here. And so we're going to dice this up. Okay, so when we're dicing up, we have the two ends. We're going to turn the onion sideways. So we have the two ends here, and where the hairy end is, you don't want to cut all the way through. We want to cut slices, but almost to the end. Okay, so we're going to cut down. All right, and then we're going to turn the other end and cut perpendicular. Watch your fingers. All right, so now we have nice, perfectly diced up onion. We're going to do the other side. If you have it's a little higher, I just like to go one layer in the middle there, then I cut down. Again, I'm not going all the way to the hairy end. Turn it sideways, and now we perpendicular. And because of those layers and the way the onion is, you automatically, right there, get diced onion. Easy. The way with onions are easy when you know the couple methods how to cook them up, cut them up. Once you know that, it's so easy to maneuver an onion. All right, next we have celery. All right, so I didn't happen to have any, but sometimes on top of celery you have a little of the celery leaves. I like to keep those in there, but today the celery that I had did not, so it's a little dry on the end. So I'm going to cut off the ends, cut off the bottom. Okay, we're not going to use those. These are already washed. Then I'm going to, just to make this a lot easier, I'm going to cut these down the middle. So I have half the size. And then I'm going to cut about maybe a 1/4 inch strips here. Okay, just keep, now you're going to go to each piece. Cut your 1/4 inch strips. And it's all about saving time and doing less work. Okay, so now we're cutting all of our, so now we have all these rods. All right, now we're going to bunch these all together, line them all up, cut against, and now we have our nice diced celery. Sometimes if it's too big, it kind of gets a little out of control a little bit. All right, so now we have our onion and our celery. Wipe off your knife. Okay, so now that's prepped to go in the oven once a minute. Ready to put the chicken into the pot. So this is a little bit, you can feel how hot this is. And what I'm going to use, so typically the different oils that I use, you can either use olive oil or canola oil, so it's a little lighter. For something like this where I have high heat and that pot's hot, and I'm going to be you're kind of browning the meat in the pot. I like to use canola oil because olive oil has a much lower like burn rate, so the oil might burn a little bit. Canola oil is a lot higher. So we're going to put a good amount, maybe 2 tablespoons of oil in the bottom. And then all I do, I'm going to pour maybe a third of this in because you want to give your meat plenty of room in the pot. So I'm going to put about a third of this in. Okay, move it around so you're spacing the meat out. Okay, you can hear that sizzle. That means the pot's hot. All right, so make sure they have enough space, some air to breathe. You don't want them on top of each other. That's why we have to do. We can't just throw all the meat in there right away. So you got to give it some space. So we'll let that cook for a little while, and then we'll flip that and go to our next batch. Now that the chicken has been cooking for a little while, so the main reason why I have a nice hot pot is because if it's too low, what happens is the meat or the chicken will stick to the pot. And then it won't come out, and you won't get that nice browning on it. But what we're looking for, and this is how you know when the meat is ready to be turned over to the other side, is you look at that nice brown we got there. So that's when you know it's ready to turn. So now we're going to flip each piece. That's what you're looking for. Brown food tastes good. That's a quote from Amberelle. I've always watched her. That's one of my favorite quotes from her. Brown food tastes good. So you want to brown that food, get that good flavor on that chicken. That'll add so much more to your stew later on. We are finishing up our last batch of chicken here, and again, you get nice brown chicken. I have a little bowl here. You're going to have the chicken here and then collect all the juices. Okay, we've gone. This is my third batch here. Okay, all done. We're going to put that aside for later. Next we're going to put 3 tablespoons of butter. Okay, so we have about 3 tablespoons right in the pot. All right, and then to go along with that, we have our onions and celery that we cut up earlier. So all that goes right in. Okay, and then last, but definitely not least, salt and pepper. Every layer whenever you're cooking, you always want to use salt and pepper. It's a little hot. Every layer you're adding salt and pepper, okay, and in a good amount. Okay, a little salt, pepper. Okay, and we're going to stir this around. And we're going to just let this sweat out for about 5 minutes or so. When you put in vegetables into a pot, especially onions and celery, there's a lot of liquid in there, a lot of water. So when you put those into a hot pot, you might have some brown bits or some things that might have stuck to the bottom of the pot. This liquid, when it sits there, that steam will actually loosen all that stuff right off of the pot. And everything that sticks to the bottom of the pot, especially when you're making something like this, that's all flavor. And that's all really, really good flavor. So you want that. So when you're going along, make sure it'll come off easy, but if there is any more, just make sure you scrape all that off so it gets in the sauce and the gravy or the stew that you're making, because it just adds so much more flavor. So while the onions and celery are cooking, we're going to cut up these carrots. All right, so we want to cut these up till about 1/4 inch, maybe about 1/2 inch pieces. Okay, so I have a couple of running out of carrots here, but we have about 4 carrots. We're going to cut off the ends and the tips. Okay, these are already peeled. All right, we're going to cut this in half. So this one's already pretty thin, so we could just kind of use that as one of our rods here. So the rest we're going to cut into quarters. Okay, we have a quarter there. If you want, turn it over to the flat side, make it a little safer. Cut right down the middle. So remember, we're cutting our carrots into rods. So we're cutting them in half and then quartering them. Okay, so you're going to put kind of like the same length ones together. Makes it easier. Alright, so now we're going to bunch them up similar to what we did with the celery. Bunch them up together, and we're going to cut about quarter inch, half to quarter inch big pieces. Mainly chunks of carrots. Okay, because these take a little while to cook down, but they're going to be sitting in the liquid in the pot with the chicken while it's baking for about an hour. So these are going to be perfectly tender when you're ready to go. And then the last thing I'm just going to get ready while that's cooking is we throw some bay leaves in at the end. So you could have fresh or dried. I happen to have some fresh, so we're going to use 2 bay leaves. Okay, and those go in right at the end after we put the liquid in. Veggies are nice and cooked down. They're tender. They're brown. Remember, brown food tastes good. So now we're ready to go. This is a step that you have to kind of be ready with all the parts because it moves fast, but it's still pretty easy. Okay, so that's why it's nice to have everything ready to go on your side. So we have our next we're going to put in is just a quarter teaspoon of dried thyme. If you have fresh thyme, great. But for this, I like dried. I like to take that quarter and I kind of break it up in my hands, kind of breaks up the leaves a little bit, and we're just literally going to mix this around. I'd say, and just till you smell it, I'm already smelling it. Okay, 30 seconds. That's all you're doing. All right, so that's just so you start smelling it. Next, we're going to throw in 1/3 of a cup of flour. And what this is going to do, this is going to make the sauce almost turn into thicker and almost like a gravy eventually. So we're just going to sprinkle that in. All right, and we are going to, and I like to set myself a timer, just to keep track. All right, and this has to be cooked out for 1 minute. All right, and the reason why you do that is if I just threw the flour in here and then poured the liquid and everything, all you're basically doing is you have raw flour that's now in your sauce or in your gravy. So you're going to cook it for a minute. So you're kind of cooking out, and you got to constantly mix it, or it's going to burn. That's why. So you're constantly moving it around. All right, and this will remove that raw flour flavor. Sometimes if you've gone somewhere, if you had something that's like almost like in a cream sauce or something, and you kind of taste that so it just tastes. Something seems off. It seems like raw. It seems floury. That's probably because whoever made it didn't do this step. It's really important. So cook it for a full minute, and you're kind of toasting the flour. You're cooking it, so you really get rid of that flavor. So I got less than 10 seconds to go. All right, and the next step. So now we have our fat, okay, plus fat, which is our butter, okay, plus flour, which is our thickener. And the last thing we're adding next is our liquid. Now we have our chicken stock. So that combination, those 3 things, gives you that thicker, more saucy type of feel there. And so we're going to pour in 4 cups. And so this is 1 quart, and that's 4 cups. So we're going to throw in 4 cups of chicken stock. Okay, so you're going to start with just a little bit at first. And what you're going to do, you're going to see all these bubbles. It's starting to really bubble. And it's getting into these vegetables. Okay, so what you want to do, you want to kind of mix out to get all the flour into the gravy. So now you let this it's called deglazing. You're going to let this kind of sizzle a little bit, and then we're really going to start mixing it. And it really works. You're going to see this is, I don't know if you can tell, this is really thickening up fast. So once you do that, then we're going to pour the rest of the chicken stock in. And we're going to keep stirring. All right, you're going to scrape off the sides. There's a lot of good flavor in there. All right, you want to break up the veggies, break up the flour that was on there, get that into your sauce. Keep going with the chicken stock. We'll finish it off. All right, and one thing, this type of whisk is really helpful for this type when you're doing this type of thing. Because this, how it's angled there, you could dig into the sides to get everything scraped up out of the pan. So if you don't have a whisk like this, they're very cheap, get one. Okay, that's done. Next, now, basically we just throw everything into the pot, bring it up and simmer, and then we toss it in the oven, and we don't think about it for another hour. All right. So we have our chicken here with so I'm going to pour the chicken in, and all that juice and everything that was in there. You want to get all that. Guess what that is? That's flavor. That's all adds to it. Okay, so you're putting that in. Next, we have our 2 bay leaves and our carrots. Okay, we're going to turn this up a little bit. Stir it around. And what's the next? Every step. What did I say? Every step of the way. So we just put a step is putting liquid in there. Next, salt and pepper. Salt and pepper. If you happened to use, sometimes I do, if you don't have chicken stock and you have like chicken bouillon, and you made your own chicken stock through chicken bouillon, which I love, it has great flavor, it's so convenient. But if you do, that has salt in there. So you got to be a little, maybe on this step, if I did that, I probably wouldn't have put this extra salt and pepper in because you don't want it to be over salty. I would just check it at the end and make sure, I would check it to see how much salt, if it was seasoned well enough. And if it wasn't, then I'd add more. But you got to wait till that, because you have raw chicken here. You're not going to taste this now. All right, so we turn this up. We're going to bring this to a simmer, and then we're popping it into simmering. It's bubbling, it's simmering, starting to boil. What that does, why that is important, is because what that boiling does is it activates your flour to start the thickening process. So that's why that's so important. So you got to get to that point, and now it's ready to go in the oven. While our chicken is cooking, we can get everything else ready for the end. And the 2 things we need to do is cut up and mince fresh parsley, and then just measure out and rinse off and defrost some frozen peas. All right, so first we have the parsley. You can use flat leaf parsley. One thing I'd recommend if you do buy fresh herbs from the store is if you don't have one of these, the salad spinners, get one. They're very, very convenient. You could do obviously lettuce, you do herbs and everything, and it's just really convenient. So you could wash them up there, dry them, and you're good to go, and then you could store them in the fridge. So we need about 2 to 3 tablespoons of fresh parsley. So parsley, I'm going to take most of the leaves, and I just twist off the stems. All right, and then you're going to bunch them all together. And with your sharp knife, we're just going to mince them up. So first we're going to do one time through, kind of like slicing through the bunch you have. And then once you get towards the end, then you want to put your hand on this side of the knife, and so that's going to keep the end of the knife, the pointy end of the knife, on the cutting board. And then you're just going to move it around. And it could be as minced or as big as you want it to be. Okay. All right, so now we have our parsley ready to go when the stew is ready. Now that the stew is almost ready, we have a couple more minutes left in the oven. Now it's time to make the dumplings. All right, and it's very simple to make. You need 2 cups of all-purpose flour, 1 tablespoon of baking powder, teaspoon of salt, and then what we have here is warm whole milk, a cup of warm whole milk with 3 tablespoons of butter in there. So what I do, I just put it in a container that you could put in the microwave. Measure a cup of milk in, and then the 3 tablespoons, and I do a minute at a time, little by little, and mix it up. Little by little, the milk warms, and the butter will melt. Once the butter's melted, it's good to go. And it's really the reason why you want to use whole milk and butter is that fat really helps to really make good solid dumplings. If you the less fat you have, they don't hold together as well. They're not as fulfilling. So you want to use full fat milk and butter, and then make sure it's warm. It helps it really bind together right away. So we're going to measure this out. So we have 2 cups all-purpose flour. Okay. Next, baking powder. Make sure you don't grab the baking soda. It will not be good. Okay, we got 1 whole tablespoon of baking powder. That baking powder is what's going to make those rise. Teaspoon of salt. Don't be afraid for salt. Okay, we're just going to mix that up. Whoops. Just make sure it's nice and mixed. All right, we're going to make a little hole right in the center. You're going to pour your liquid in. And you're just nicely stirring it up. And it's going to bind up. It's going to get a little thicker. Okay, just make sure you're going to stir this up till the flour there's no dry flour anymore. It's all wet. All right, our chicken dumplings are ready to take out of the oven. So you have been in there for about an hour. Okay, haven't touched it. Watch out, this is going to be very hot. All right, wow. That looks amazing and smells amazing. All right, so you're gonna see all that's cooked and ready to go. First thing you're gonna do, we're gonna remove those bay leaves. Okay, we have one. Whoop. Sometimes you gotta search for it. They might stick to the bottom or the sides. Just keep stirring around. There it is. Okay, we're gonna remove that other bay leaf. And one little trick that I do to help break up the chicken and make it a little thicker is I take my potato masher. Because right now, we have that chicken, it's in chunks. So we want it to kind of be a little bit more shredded. So what that does, it kind of thickens up the sauce a little bit. So we're just going to go through with the potato masher and just go around. We're not going to kill it. We're just going to break it up. You're just trying to break it up a little bit. And you're not going to don't try to break up the carrots too much either, but you're not really going to do that. So we're just trying to, honestly, we're really just trying to shred this chicken just a little bit. So little smaller pieces. Okay? So just that little bit makes a big difference and just thickens everything up right there. All right, so then the last things we're adding to it. We have 1 cup of, or a little more if you want, 1 cup of peas that I just defrosted with just running under hot water from frozen peas. 2 to 3 tablespoons of that minced fresh parsley, flat leaf. And then like always, every step, a little salt and pepper. All right, we're going to mix this around. And now we're just going to bring this back to a simmer. And once it's back to a simmer, we're ready to put the dumplings in. Now that the stew is simmering, it's ready to put the dumplings in, okay? So what you're going to do, so we have our dumpling batter. You're going to just get a little scoop, maybe about, you're looking for almost like a golf ball size dumpling. So you're just going to put on your spoon and you're just going to push it right into the stew. And then you're going to move to your next one. Grab another spoonful, put it in, and you're going to make your way all the way around. All right, dumplings are all done. Pot is simmering, and we're just going to put the top right on and see you in 17 minutes. Okay, 17 minutes has gone by. These should be ready to go. Let's take a look. Ooh, a lot of steam. All right, see how much those doubled in size? So now that those are ready, and if you look, you could see no more raw dough up on the top. That's how you could see it's kind of cooked all the way through. That's how you could tell the dumplings are done. All right, we're going to take this off the heat, let it rest for about 10 to 15 minutes because right now that is extremely hot. You want to burn your mouth, but that looks amazing. All right, now that's rested, we are ready to eat. We're going to scoop this in. Oh man, look at that. Oh yeah. All right, chicken and dumplings. Enjoy.